Alrighty, guys, jumping back into it. We're gonna focus today on polynomial definitions, basically what makes and doesn't make a polynomial, and the different types of polynomials you can expect. Now, let me break this thing down for you. What makes a polynomial is actually a lot easier than you think. If you have any group of terms that have positive exponents or no exponents, which would so positive exponents including 0, then you are a polynomial. All of these examples here, these are all examples of polynomials. Examples of things that are not polynomials would be negative exponents, so exponents that are on the bottom of a fraction, or fractional exponents, so our radicals that we were just dealing with in Unit 4. Those are not polynomials. Notice this would mean we include constants on its own, 6, 8, even fractions on its own, negative 2/3. But as long as you have exponents, make sure those exponents are positive and whole numbers, and you have yourself a polynomial. So now, knowing what polynomials are and are not, focus on what types of polynomials there are. And majority of the time, they're only classified two different ways. They're classified by how many terms there are and the total degree of the polynomial. Let's focus on the terms because that's an easier one to see. Terms are split by either a plus or a minus in between. So if you have one term, you don't have any pluses or minuses in between. You're just one group together, a coefficient and variables, or just a constant. One-term polynomials are called monomials. Now, if you have two terms, notice the difference. You're split with a plus or a minus sign. That gives you two terms. Two terms are called binomials. Mono is 1, bi is 2, tri makes 3, and that's what we call three-term polynomials, trinomials. Notice again, 1, 2, 3 terms because they're split with either a plus or a minus sign. Last, if you go more than 3 terms for Algebra 1, we're just going to call them polynomials. You don't have to worry about like what 4 means or anything like that. If you have more than 3, just call it a polynomial. Now, looking at degree, guys, with degree here, it's a little bit trickier. Degree is the exponents. Just like how we were underlining for adding and subtracting, that's our degree. So if you don't have any exponents, meaning you don't have any variables, you have a degree 0, you're called a constant polynomial. If you have a variable with an invisible 1 exponent, then you are a linear polynomial. If you have a variable with an exponent 2 as the biggest one, because look at this problem. This is a good example. X squared and then an x. Focus on which one's your biggest. That's your degree of that polynomial. But anyways, if you have an exponent of 2, you're known as quadratic polynomial. And there's the name of our unit, right? That's why we call it quadratic functions. We're going to be dealing with a lot of these polynomials, degree 2. And then last, we have to know in Algebra 1, if you go degree 3, meaning you have an exponent of 3 as the biggest in your polynomial, you're known as a cubic polynomial. Now, there's different names for the stuff that goes bigger than this, but you won't have to worry about that until Algebra 2. So, looking at polynomials, we classify them based off of the number of terms and based off of the degree. So let's go to our delta math and let's look at some of these polynomials and classify if they are or if they are not. Looking at this one here, I have 9c to the 5th power minus 8c to the negative 5th power. Is this a polynomial, yes or no? Positive exponent, so it could be negative exponent. Definitely not. Not a polynomial. Negative exponents, no good. Let's try another one. I have x squared plus x to the fourth. Oh, I'm sorry. X over 4. That would be a big difference right there. Because if it was x to the fourth power, no, it would still count. I'm sorry. Never mind. So looking at this one, focus on those degrees. Focus on those exponents. I have a positive 2 and then a positive invisible 1. This is a polynomial. Now that we can classify it as a polynomial, let's break it down a little more. What type of polynomial is this thing? Well, how many terms do you see there? I see 2 terms because I'm only split with 1 plus sign. So I want to call that a binomial. Now look at the biggest exponent. What's our degree? Our biggest exponent is 2, so I have a degree of 2. Let's try another one. Negative 6b, polynomial or not? Looking at exponent, it's an invisible 1. It's positive, so that means this is a polynomial. How many pluses or minuses do you see? That split your numbers. If it's in front, doesn't split it, doesn't change it to 2 terms. This is just a 1-term polynomial, which we're going to call a monomial. What was our exponent again? It was an invisible 1. So we have a linear monomial. Not too bad, right? Now let's break down these polynomials and focus a little more with some vocab here. When we're looking at these polynomials, just like before, we're looking at the different types, right? Based off of the degree. So looking at this one, I have x squared, which tells me this is a quadratic polynomial. Look at those other words, guys. Let's talk about this really quick. Linear was a exponent of 1. Quadratic, exponent of 2. Cubic, exponent of 3. And then I'll tell you right now, quartic is 4, like a quart. And then quintic is 5. But for us, we only need x squared, so we'll keep it as quadratic. How many terms do we see there? We see 2. The constant term is what? Well, that's our term without any variables at all. So that's negative 1/9. The leading term, if we put this in standard form with our biggest exponent first, what's that leading coefficient? Oops, I'm sorry. That leading term is x squared, and then the leading coefficient for that would be the invisible number I'm multiplying by. That would be an invisible 1. So putting it in standard form makes it a little easier for you to see, right? Let's try another one of these. 10x to the fourth plus 1 minus 7x. If I was to put this in standard form, I would switch the 1 and the negative 7x around. So now we could look at this thing. X to the fourth is my biggest exponent. That's 4. So we want to call that quartic. How many terms do you see? You should see 3 terms. The constant term, what's our term without any variables? That's positive 1. And the leading term, what has our biggest exponent? 10x to the fourth. And what is the multiplier? What's the number multiplying with that term? It's 10. Polynomials and their definitions. If you have any questions, guys, please let me know. We'll talk to you later.